But the name is the same like from Iran, Kaihan. So this man is combination of all the countries. And what is his magic? He brought $2.5 billion in revenue for huge companies, being the greatest consultant and authors of the books, 5 books, very famous books. My first question to you, Kaihan, since you are known in making money for the companies, I think it's a good gift, not a bad gift at all. What you will recommend? No, the first question is like this. You wrote a book. It's called Hide a Dagger Behind the Smile. Actually, it's a very frightening name. Mm-hmm. It sounds like a horror movie. For me, as a director and producer of the documentary films, as a director and producer of the movies, it sounds like a scene already. Tell me, please, why you called your book like that, and how we can use Chinese techniques in our life.
Yes. So the name is a Chinese metaphor. And to be honest with you, I fought the publisher a bit on the title of the name. I wanted to use a different Chinese metaphor, but it's one of 36 Chinese metaphors. Those other metaphors include things like let the plum tree wither in place of the peach. Await the exhausted enemy at your ease. Deck the bogus trees with blossoms. They're these kind of flowerful phrases. But my work for the last 20 years, my doctorate work, have really been about taking these 36 Chinese metaphors and showing how they relate to modern business strategic concepts.
A dagger behind the smile for us, for Europeans, for me as a Russian person, it sounds, intriguing. Somebody who is very sly, like a fox, smile, but he has something very black in his mind. And when there is opportunity, he will dagger you. Isn't it? Or you meant something else?
No, that's what the original metaphor really implies. It basically says, appear to be friendly, so that your opponent will not want to attack you, and then have your dagger behind you, ready to attack. But for me, the key step in that sequence is to be friendly, to not create competition, to be a smile, so that you have less opposition. And I think that is the mode of competition that we're entering now in global business, is to create a strategy that benefits multiple stakeholders so that you do not create competition. Right. So we talk about the next generation or next iteration of corporate social responsibility. When we look at the companies that have been successful in the last few years, and the ones that have been most successful who have issued IPOs, initial public offerings in the United States, what we see is that they adopt a strategy that benefits others. So it is kind of I think we need to look at what the core message of that stratagem really is: do not create opposition.
So you suggest, Kaihan, that this atmosphere in the company that should benefit, that should earn a lot of money, that should move its team forward, that can survive in any situations and in spite of any obstacles, it's a little bit different from Olympic Games. It's not a sport competition. It's something on the contrary, isn't it?
Yes. If we look at if we want to link it to Olympics, in 1968, a gentleman named Dick Fosbury, in the Olympics, he jumped over the high bar backward. And before that day, every Olympic athlete had gone over forward. And so what we're looking at is, how do you take these patterns? This is one example of a pattern. And how do you use that to think differently about the way things have been done? Research into expertise and expert performance, it shows, and I got to interview a Russian chess player, Alexandra Kostanuk, for one of my books. And what she's able to do is she's able to line up an entire town and play chess against them, and she's able to beat everyone, who sits in front of her. And the main thing that she does is that she approaches the game with new patterns that you and I don't see. So, ultimately, if we want to create value, we want to create growth. If we want to create that $2.5 billion, what it is, if I bring it all together, is people have been doing something one way and they've stopped looking for new ways of doing things. Those could be, how do we sell our product? How do we distribute our product? How do we hire our employees? How do we market? Whatever that is. And someone comes in, I call them the outthinker. They apply a new pattern and they try a different way. They go over backward instead of forward. That is what I call the fourth option. That is the source of all great companies you can root back to, that they have looked for a new way of doing things. And the way to get access to that
I'm
is through
sorry
the
to
patterns.
interrupt you. Tell me, please, do you think we should overlook something and be outthinker, as you put it, and because your book is called the same and you like to do outthinking, do you think we should change the strategy of how we run the business, even it's going good? Or you think we should reverse and find the new ways of doing it only if it's doing bad? Because imagine if I'm the Disneyland and Disneyland is doing very good and I will stop doing what is doing good, why should I stop?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So the key is to not make it a choice, right? So that you always need to be doing some things that have been working. These are the core things that we know work, and we need to maintain doing that. And then you want to spend like 70% of your reinvestment in a business should be investing what's working. But you should spend 20% of your reinvestment on things that are new ways of doing things. And then you should spend the remaining 10% on things that are experiments, new ways of doing things that we don't know if they're going to work or not. If you do not invest in the new and the options, as I call them, then eventually your core business will decline. Right, you'll go stagnant. What has been working eventually will no longer work. And you see this over and over again. It's critical that you do you invest across all three horizons.
But tell me, please, these family companies like Toyota or BMW, there are a lot of family companies that exist for a long time, more than 100 years. How do you think they exist? You think that they're reinventing something, they're adding something? What's going on? By the way, also, we know that for descendants, it's very difficult to continue the business of rich mother, father, and the family because they're not that hungry for money and they don't have motivation. What is their secret? How they manage to survive?
Gotcha. Yeah, no, it is that reinvention, but not reinvention like we have. If you get to the point where you have to abandon everything that your parents did when they built the business and recreate the business, then it's probably you've waited too long. You need to be constantly looking at new ways of doing things. Hey, your parents did it through advertising in newspapers, but people don't read newspapers, right, anymore, right? So are we translating that to social media? Are we translating that to online advertising? And so across all the dimensions of your business, and I believe there are 8 different dimensions. There's branding, which I call, positioning. There is placement or distribution, pricing models. There are processes. There are your product, your physical experience, your people policies, all of these different areas. We want to be looking constantly at, is the way that our business has been built, our parents who built the business, is that still the optimal way? If we're doing that from the get-go, from the very beginning, then we never reach a point where we have to throw everything out. We need to create something new. That only happens when you have failed at exploring new ways of doing things across your entire business model.
So you recommend to be a little bit proactive. Don't wait while you will fail. Don't wait while the obstacles, don't wait while the sharks are going to eat you. And
Mhm.
there is no way to run away. You recommended to do it one step ahead or two steps ahead before everything starts collapsing. Try to find the plan B, C, D, and if something
Mhm.
happens, then you can use it. That is smart. That is, it's difficult to argue with that. Do you think, Kaihan, it is possible to make family businesses when you can give your businesses to your kids or anything? Or you think it depends only on the personality of the person who created? Because we know the families like Rockefeller, Rothschild, these tycoons are still alive and they're still running the world. What do you
Mm.
think? What is the secret of these huge families?
No, it's interesting, family businesses or businesses who generally are built on a mission that is not tied to a particular product or market, right? They exist to exist because they exist for the family. And so these are these kind of built to last kind of businesses. And in that case, I think you're not talking about a company. You're
Mm,
talking about an organization.
yeah.
An organization that can evolve into new types of businesses and can move from, say, manufacturing to space travel, right? So I think that there is they are hugely relevant, and but the purpose, maybe the most important thing that you can ask yourself as a business owner is, what business are we in? Peter Drucker, arguably the most influential management thought leader of all time, he said that strategy ultimately is the answer to that question. What business are we in? And so these family businesses are in the business often of building and maintaining the wealth of the family, which is an absolutely legitimate reason to exist. Their behavior, therefore, is very different from companies that are owned by investors in the public markets, right?
But that
Other forms.
means that businesses, normally we think that businesses, they should have some mission to go to the space, to help people with education, to help people with the health. But here there is no mission. The mission is to keep the money.
Mhm.
So you mean that that can be the mission of the business, just to
Sure.
keep the money?
I think so. I personally would rather work for a business that has a mission that relates to me as a human in humanity, right? But if we want to get really philosophical here, I mean, what's the purpose of life, right? Why do we exist? Why do humans exist? What any entity, any species exists to exist. So if we what's changing now is the way to ensure the longevity of the company. If that was your only purpose, the way to achieve that is to adopt strategies that benefit other stakeholders, that help the environment, that reduce pollution, that enable humanity to continue living on this planet. So for the first time in, it may be the first time, I don't really know, but it seems like for the first time ever, we have this collapsing of being a selfish organization that just wants to exist and doing something good for society. They end up becoming one and the same.
Kaihan, why you say it's the first time in the history? Why the first time in humanity? Why do you think this first time is now?
You know, I think because many of the externalities, and by externality I mean the economic term, where you do something and there is an impact that doesn't, it's external to your profit. I think for the first time, the externalities of humans organizing to pursue wealth, those externalities like polluting the environment, like driving global warming, like creating inequality of economic inequality, those externalities for the first time are starting to make their way back into the system. because there are investors who are saying, hey, we're not going to invest in this energy company that is only pursuing fossil fuels because we're going to lose money on that investment, right? So instead, we want ExxonMobil, we want Shell, we want energy companies to now start diversifying, not only because it's good for the environment, but that's the only way that the company is going to survive over the long term.
Which is fair enough. So people have to think about environment. People have to think about another people, because there is no way out. To survive for humanity, we need to do it. And maybe it's the first time in the history. And my last question to you for today, I know it's not in the list of questions. I know it's not from your books, because it's happened just recently, maybe a few hours ago. And since you are from some of your roots are from the East, you know what's happening now in Afghanistan. And I think it's very, very shocking that in 21st century we can witness that. Do you think that these political things that are happening, they are teaching us something? It's a lesson for us, for you personally?
Yeah. Yeah, I think that, if we want to link it back to business, I think it's about, well, I mean, first of all, how quickly, when the US and European forces left, how quickly the Taliban filled the gap, right?
In few hours.
In hours. It's shocking. I agree. It's shocking. And I think if we want to link it to business, I think it's about really understanding what the market wants. In other words, we have a certain view of the way things should be, but obviously not everyone shares that view. And if you do not understand that there are these forces that you call an enemy that don't think the way that you think, and you can't even, there are so many of them that you cannot ignore them, and this last few hours proves it, right? For me, it's really about understanding, hey, your point of view isn't the only point of view. You need to understand the points of view of others, whether that are other investors, whether those are other combatants, whether those are other customers, and get in their heads to really understand what are the motivations that lead them to their point of view.
I will tell you, Kaihan, what's happening now in the world, really, it's very shocking for me as a former diplomat, and just as a person who is watching the news, who is interested in the world's order. I hope that we will find out solution for that. And what you say, it's really, we need to outthink. I think the name of your book is really Outthinker, to think out of the box. And I'm happy to know that when you helped to build this 2.5 billion corporations revenue, that you were using these new things, as you say, that we have to think about the humanity, we have to think about ecology, we have to think about water, we have to think about education. Otherwise, even if you earn milliards and billions, it's useless, because it can happen what's happening now. And also what I understood, that the empty things can be filled very quickly within the hours. So it's better to prepare it before, to make sure that we fill it in with something relevant, with something good, with something useful. Then it makes sense.
That's very beautifully said. Very beautifully said. Yes, I agree.
Thank you so much for being with us. I like your name. Maybe I will go to sleep and remember Kaihan Krippendorf, because it sounds very optimistic to me. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you,